probably put something on chat. Sorry. Oh, you ain't got it yet. It should come up soon. Here we go. So,
Oh Lord.
Every time somebody tries to speak up and like tell people who they are, they quote unquote cancel them. They have to apologize for what they said.
Senor West. So,
Not even him, somebody else. They was promote Hebrews to Negroes.
we'll give it a few moments.
pull it up. I'm gonna apologize for 10 years ago.
We are back.
People just pay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're back.
But it did the auto
I know it
correction on
did.
its own.
Yeah. We'll give it a few moments. Let's look at that.
There's 3 people, right?
We'll give it a couple more seconds.
It's not like you said.
It's a seconds.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We'll be done about 4. No.
Yeah, we'll be done.
Yeah. 3. Maybe. All right. We want to, well, first, we're not going to apologize for Amalek shutting down a teaching. We're not going to apologize for that, but we are back. Okay, because if it was up to us, it would continue on. We wouldn't be cut off. So where were we? We were at the Israelites living in tranquility. Right? Tranquility. Where are we at?
Verse 152.
All right, go ahead.
Verse 152. And let them have a proper quantity of wheat for the maintenance of their servants until they receive bread corn out of the earth. Also let a sufficient share be given to such as minister to them in the necessaries of life, that by enjoying the effects of our humanity, that they may show themselves more willing and ready for about our affairs. Verse 153. Take care likewise of that nation, as far as thou art able, that they may not have any disturbance given them by anyone.
Do you hear what is being said? Please keep that in the back of your mind for what we're going to read later. Look at the favor that they were being shown. Why? Because of the book of Daniel. Really, because of the book of Daniel. Book of Daniel is much more than what you think it is. It's more than just a lion's den. That's more than that. Keep reading.
Now these testimonials which I have produced are sufficient to declare the friendship that Antiochus the Great bare to the Hebrews.
There you are. Okay. Tranquility. Tranquility. Lived in peace.
So you're saying that when
I'm not saying anything. We just read it from the Josephus. It's not me.
Okay. What we read here that from the beginning that Israelites, right, had their freedom when the Greeks was ruling, basically.
Yes.
That's what you say.
Right. That's not what I'm saying. That's what Josephus is saying. I'm not saying anything. So the Josephus and the Bible says the same thing. And the Apocrypha says the same thing. That during the beginning of the Greek captivity, Israel was not under captivity. They were not. And for a good portion of the Greek captivity, they were not in captivity. Now, something happened. The Seculides, they started to concentrate their efforts looking at Rome. Rome had just defeated Hannibal. Everybody know who Hannibal was?
No.
Strike one. Strike
Are you
one.
serious?
Yeah, I was.
That's a movie.
Strike one.
Strike
Strike one. Hannibal was a real person.
Yes.
Strike one for Shamari. So the Seculites were helping Hannibal at the Battle of Carthage. So they turned their attention. After making a peace treaty with Ptolemy, Epiphanes Antiochus invaded Thrace, which is Turkey or Asia Minor. Oh no, Thrace is in North Africa, sorry. He invaded Thrace with the influence of Hannibal, which Hannibal invaded Greece. The Romans at this time had evacuated Greece. So Hannibal, after the defeat in Rome, decided, I'm going to take over Greece. So he marched his elephants and everything to Greece. The Romans retaliated. They defeated him at, guess what? Thermopylae. Again. And then they went on to Asia Minor, right? We're going to go back to the Josephus, book 12, chapter 4, section 1, verses 154 and 155. That's Antiquity of the Jews, book 12, chapter 4, section 1, verses 154 and 155. Let's read that.
Verse 154. After this, Antiochus made a friendship with and a league with Ptolemy, and gave him his daughter Cleopatra to wife, and yielded up to him Celesyria, and Samaria, and Judea, and Phoenicia, by way of dowry. 155. And upon the division of the taxes between the two kings, all the principal men framed the taxes of their several countries, and collecting the sum that was settled for them, paid the same to the two kings.
So, and you mentioned Cleopatra. It's not the Cleopatra you think. There are several Cleopatras in history. Right. So it's not the Cleopatra that you think. That Cleopatra came a lot later, with the rule of Rome. Rome is not ruling at this time. So there were different, if you didn't know it, now you know it. There were different Cleopatras. Cleopatra was a title, not a name. All right? So let's go to Daniel chapter 11, verse 17. And let's see. Remember, he gave his daughter. Someone gave their daughter up. Does it say that in Daniel 11:17? Read that. Daniel 11:17. Let's see if that is the same thing that we read out of the Josephus. Read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 17. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her. But she shall not stand on his side, neither before him.
We read the same thing in the Josephus, the exact same thing. But Daniel goes into a little deeper, goes into what happened afterwards. We're not going to concern ourselves with that. The peace treaty, there was a peace treaty that was signed. And when the peace treaty, where are we at? We're staying in Daniel 11. And when the peace treaty was signed, Antiochus was agreed to give up Asia Minor and Tarshish. He was agreed to give that up. And a lot of his military and a lot of his force were paid out of taxes. Now, some of their army were captured in Rome. When they went to Rome to help out with the battle in Rome against Hannibal, Some of their people were captured. So in order to get their people back, they had to pay taxes because these people were hostages. And one of them was his son. Guess who that was? Antiochus Epiphanes. Interesting, huh? Daniel chapter 11, verses 18 and 19. Let's read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 18.
And let's see if the Bible says what I just said. Read.
After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease.
There you go. Keep reading.
Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him.
There you go. All of this prosperity, all of this wonderful grace that we were given, and his son was captured at the battle of Thermopylae, that's another one, in Rome with Hannibal, the battle of Carthage, that's what it was. His son, Antiochus Epiphanes, was caught. And in order for him to get not only his son, but to get all of his men out from Rome under hostage, he had to pay tribute. Where did he get it from? Daniel says it, but a prince of his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. It tells you right there. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. It says it right there, yes?
So Antiochus III had a battle with Hannibal, and Hannibal.
No. That's incorrect. Antiochus III was assisting Rome with the Battle of Carthage against Hannibal. The men of Antiochus III were caught and taken hostage. And in order for them to release the hostages, Antiochus III had to come up with a tribute. One of those was Antiochus Epiphanes, his son. Verse 19.
Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found.
All right, now let's hold there and let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10.
I have a comment in the chat.
What's the comment on the chat?
Deacon Amin says, Hannibal was a mighty warrior Hamite from the continent of Africa. He used to ride elephants into battle.
Right. Yeah, he did. Hannibal was a Hamite. And yes, he would ride elephants into battle. That's how he won a lot of wars, with elephants. All right, read that. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10.
1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
All right. Daniel said that. Josephus said that. We just read it in 1 Maccabees 1 and 10. This was the change. Because you wonder, if they were getting all this favor, how did it change? When did it change? And it tells us how it changed. And when did it change? Let's see more. 1 Maccabees chapter 8, verses 1 through 6. Yes, sir?
Why did it change?
Why?
Were they receiving favor because at that time they were serving the Most High correctly? And was there a change in how they were serving the Most High?
We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see. We're not there yet. 1 Maccabees, yes?
Okay, just to make sure that I'm understanding everything that's going on. So Antiochus helped the Romans in the battle of Carthage.
Antiochus who?
Antiochus III helped Rome in the battle of Carthage, and that's when they took his army and his son's name is Antiochus Epiphany, and that's when they asked for a tribute.
They asked for hostage money, but yeah, a tribute.
And we have to know that Antiochus III, it was a lot of battles, not just one.
Right, there was a lot of battles, but the one that we're concerned about
Yeah.
is the one where his son was taken.
Right.
Remember, Israel or Palestine was showed a lot of favor.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, even though we're still showing favor, we're still being shown favor. It has not changed yet. You had a question? All right. First Maccabees chapter 8, verses 6 through 8. Read that.
First Maccabees chapter 8, verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
Now also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants, with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, was discomfited by them.
He lost. Keep going.
And how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
And the country of India and Media and Lydia, and one of the goodliest countries which they took of him, and gave to the king Eumenes.
Right? All right. So we have established, number one, at the beginning of the Greek captivity, even though every country was being destroyed, Israel was not being destroyed. Palestine, was shown favor by Alexander, and then later on, Antiochus III, based off of the book of Daniel. Now, the Battle of Carthage plays a huge role in our history because Antiochus' son was taken at the Battle of Carthage. Carthage. So then Antiochus had to pay tribute or hostage money to get the troops back and his son back. Let's go back to the book of Josephus. We're reading book 12, chapter 10, section 6, one verse, 4:14. Just because there's one verse is still kind of long. Book of Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, book 12, chapter 10, section 6, verse 4:14. And let's read.
And when he was dead, the people bestowed the high priesthood on Judas, who, hearing the power of the Romans and that they had subdued Greece and their kings, Perseus and Philip and Antiochus the Greek also, he resolved to enter into a great league of friendship with them.
Okay. Antiochus. Now, you would probably think that, okay, he got his son out, so he's going to be next. No, that's not what happened. Antiochus was succeeded by a second son named Secules the Fourth. And that was 187. So Secules the Fourth now comes into power. He had to pay a lot of tribute to the Romans. And Antiochus, there was this big bill, a huge bill. So the Israelites remembered him and remembered how let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 3 and let's read verse 7. Now, what happened is that the Israelites remembered him because this Secules the Fourth tried to rob the temple at Jerusalem. And his minister was Heliorodus. Read 2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 7. Let's read that.
2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 7.
Yes?
Now when Apollonius came to the king and had shewed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out of Herodias, his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the foresaid money.
Bring him the foresaid money, right? Let's see this in Daniel chapter 11, verse 20. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I'll slow it down. Yes?
So Antiochus, the third son, Antiochus Epiphanes, he was released. He paid the money that he said he was going to pay, but he didn't succeed after his dad. It was Seculus the fourth. That's
Hold there. Instead of Antiochus Epiphanes, yes, Seculus the fourth was the next one in line.
Okay.
I'm not going to say he succeeded. You can say he succeeded him. Technically, he didn't. But yes, you're on the right path. We got Daniel 11 and 20. Let's read Daniel 11 and 20. See if it matches with 2 Maccabees 3 and 7. See if it matches with the Josephus in verse 4:14. Read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 20. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. But within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle.
All right. So what is this talking about? Right? Because remember I said the king Antiochus paid tribute to get his son Antiochus Epiphanes out. What does the Seculus come in at? Because he took over after Antiochus III, 175 BC. 175 BC. Herodias. Remember in the Maccabees it mentioned Herodias the treasurer? Him got assassinated. He got killed. Antiochus, and he got killed along with Seculus the fourth. He got killed. And then Antiochus' third son, Antiochus Epiphanes, was released from Rome, went to Palestine, and he was the one who killed Herodias. I want to get his name wrong. He killed Herodias, and then he made himself king. Follow me?
No. Can you say that?
All right, let's say it again. Antiochus III paid tribute to get Antiochus Epiphanes,
his son,
from hostage. His second son, I don't know what happened to the first, don't ask me. His second son, Seculus the fourth, he placed him in reign. So Antiochus III retired or whatever he did, placed his second son because his third son, which is Antiochus Epiphanes, was still in Rome. So now Seculus the fourth is reigning, and his number one guy, Herodias, is with him. Antiochus Epiphanes comes back from Rome, kills Herodias, kills Seculus the fourth. Then he declares himself king.
Oh man.
So wasn't he in charge at first?
Who? Antiochus Epiphanes?
Yeah.
No. He was not in charge. We just read it in Daniel. We just read it in 2 Maccabees and in the Josephus.
So who was he to them?
Who was he to who?
The one killed everybody, made himself king.
He was the third son of Antiochus III.
Oh, okay. That's the part I was missing.
Right. He was the third son of Antiochus
Well,
III.
yeah, history is like that for me too. I gotta be like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
So in Daniel 18, when
Hold. Yes.
it said,
Antiochus Epiphanes, he killed Herodias and Seculus. Was it because he just didn't want to pay like tribute? He just wanted to have power?
No.
He said he made
No.
himself king.
He made himself king. His father paid the tribute for him to be released from Rome. That's how he got to Palestine. And when he got to Palestine, Seculi and Herodias, they were in charge. So he killed him and made himself king.
He killed his brother and whoever Herodias was.
If you make yourself king, then what are you going to do? Are you going to make yourself king not to be in power?
Like that.
I'm just saying, I don't understand that logic. If you kill somebody and become king, you want to be powerful.
Yeah, you want to.
There's no other way. You're not going to kill somebody to become king just to say, hey, I'm king now. No, he wanted all control over Palestine. Yes, sir.
I don't know.
All right. Let's
No,
continue.
what was your question?
I'm fine.
Was it answered?
Yeah.
No, but history is like that for me too. Sometimes Shepherd and I be talking, and I have to say, okay, for like the 7th or 8th time, you gotta explain that to me again, because I was more of a math person than a history person. So history don't come easy to me.
I'm starting to get mad.
Yeah. No, I'm more of a math person. I didn't understand. Yeah, and I can handle that. I'm hands on. But with history, you gotta think, you gotta remember stuff like so. It was hard for me.
History is just putting the
That's
puzzle
because he has
together.
that.
Right? All right. Let's continue because we got a lot to go. First Maccabees 1. So the assassination, they were assassinated, and he acquired the kingdom. But when he acquired the kingdom, there was no money. There was no money. So then he tried to unify the whole Hellenization program. Religion,
Yeah.
encourage people to worship their gods, most importantly, Zeus. That's going to play into big with Antiochus.
Yeah. Politics. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that when we talked about earlier, the dream with Aristotle and all of that? That he had a dream that.
Who? Who had a dream? Aristotle?
No, Aristotle was taught by Alexander the Greek, who had the dream to Hellenize the world. Is this the dream, or that was just with Alexander the Greek?
That was just with Alexander the Greek. Or, yeah, Greek.
I thought that dream was coming now.
No, Alexander conquered the whole known world at that time. So that has already went past.
Okay.
We're well past that. Yes, ma'am?
So when you said he took over the kingdom, he took over.
Who is he?
People, when
I need to know who you're speaking of.
and when Antiochus Epiphanes took over, are you speaking Israel? That he took over
Palestine.
Israel? Palestine. Okay.
Correct.
So he took
Not over the whole world.
Just Palestine.
Just Palestine
And
at this time.
And you're saying they were broke.
I'm not saying anything.
No, per what we're reading and understanding.
I'm saying that the Bible, Apocrypha, and Josephus, they were broke.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Because
now,
of the huge taxes and the huge tribute that had to be paid for him.
oh yeah, when he was captured. Oh,
Right.
Look what he turned around and did for them.
Right.
Religion.
Uh-huh.
So basically, what the Bible is saying, because
Right.
they were broke,
No, man.
he started to remember just to get back money inside.
Right. He had to pay back. He had to pay back the tributes from his father. He had to pay that back. He had to pay, well, not pay it back. The thing is that they were broke, so they needed money to recuperate from what was paid out. That's what I should have said. Okay?
And they were Antiochus. These people are Greeks.
Greeks. Right. We're speaking of Greeks right now. All right. So he had to get some kind of financial stability. The best way to do it is to make Palestine mini Greece. Change everything.
So now y'all see what happened?
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. It's starting to.
It started, yeah.
Remember, this lesson is about the revolt.
Right.
But in order for us to understand the revolt, we have to go back to the beginning on what happened before the revolt.
So when you say the revolt, it's the revolt of the Maccabees.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So he changed his title to Antiochus Theos Epiphanes, which means manifest of God.
Oh.
So if you're going to change your name to that, then what do you want, or who do you want the people to worship? Zeus.
Oh.
So you are declaring that you are Zeus.
So the Pope claims he's
Yeah, Pope is nuts too.
So he's Zeus too.
Right. We're going to go to First Maccabees chapter 1. We're reading verses 10 through 15. So after Antiochus gets on the throne, they say that you have to settle this claim. Now, there was a dispute between High Priestess Onias, who was pro-Ptolemy, meaning that this Onias wanted everything to be as it was. And then you had another one, Onias, who was pro-Secules, meaning that I like Greece.
Are you saying Onias and then another one named Onias?
Well, I see.
Oh no, Jason, sorry.
Onias
the third was for the stuff before. Jason, I'm sorry, that's the brother. He was for pro-secular. So Jason got the yes, go ahead.
You
Sorry.
see that Jason betrayed the Israelites then.
How did he do that?
Because when he wanted to be like the Greece, he's a high priest, right?
Let me say this. A lot of you like to be like Greece.
Yeah, when we go back into
A lot of you like to be like Greece. And we're going to see that too.
Yes.
It wasn't he wanted to be like Greece. He followed the money. So then Jason secured the high priesthood.
Yeah.
He got the high priesthood because he offered a bigger payment of money to Antiochus. And he pledged his allegiance to Antiochus. This was the high priest of Israel.
Yeah. And Onias and Jason was brothers.
They were brothers. So then he said, Jason, you know what, Antiochus, I got more money than my brother. Here you go. We'll make the whole nation Hellion nation.
Yeah.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verses 10 through 15. Let's read.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10.
Yes, sir.
And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. Keep going.
That are round about us.
Yes.
For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
Since we have departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Verse 12.
So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so foreign herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
Gave them ordinance to do license after the heathen. That means you follow Greece. Forget your laws. 14.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
Uh-oh. A place of exercise. What could that possibly be?
A gymnasium.
A gymnasium. A coliseum. And what did they do in this gymnasium coliseum? Have the Israelites play games with each other. Have them fight. Have them do all that. Oh, we ain't seen nothing yet. It gets deeper. This is why we should not and would not sit there and none of all the sports and everything that goes on today.
We should not.
Our people detested it.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're going to see that too. You can't do that.
They use us for their.
They use that for their pleasure and their entertainment. Keep reading.
Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised.
Yes.
And forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen.
Uh-huh.
and were sold to do mischief.
There you go. There you go. Where did it start? It started with building places of exercise.
Yeah. Who got a gym membership in here?
Coliseum, not gym membership. Coliseums,
Coliseums.
stadiums,
Gymnasiums.
gymnasiums. That's what they did.
Football.
To follow the customs of the heathen. What are the customs of the heathen? The Olympics. And anything that has to do with the Olympics. It started there. And our people knew that it was heathenism. Knew that they shouldn't be doing that. But some of our people, Jason, decided, you know what? That's good money. Look at your sports people now. That's good money. It's the same
They get
thing.
paid
It's the
$40
same thing.
million for a 5-year contract.
Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 7 to 17.
I really want to read this right here. It's about everything you just talked about. So it's not going ahead of you.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 7 to 17. I'll let you know if it's going ahead of me. Go ahead and read it.
Let's go ahead and read it. I got it. It's pretty. My Bible's old, so look, it's right here. I got it from here to here. It's not going to here. It's everything you just talked about, that section. Where do you read it?
Yeah, we're about to read this now.
No, you just already talked about that.
No. There's more.
Uh,
We're not done with that yet.
You see where
Yeah. The crisis came during the reign of Antiochus IV, surnamed Epiphanes, who found allies in the Hellenistic party in Judea.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days of the reign of Antiochus IV, Jerusalem was ruled by the high priest Onias III,
Mm-hmm.
a descendant of Simon the Just and strictly Orthodox Hebrew. The Hebrews would look with favor on Greek culture, opposed Onias, and espoused the cause of his brother Jason.
Mm-hmm.
By promising large tribute to Antiochus, Jason succeeded in having himself appointed high priest. Although Antiochus looked upon the high priesthood as a political office, which he had right to fill as he pleased, pious Hebrews thought of the priesthood as divine in origin and considered its sale to the highest bidder a sin against God.
Mm-hmm.
Jason encouraged the Hellenists who had sought his election. A gymnasium was built in Jerusalem. Greek names became commonplace, and Hebrew orthodoxy was considered obscurant.
Why do you think the New Testament is translated from the Greek?
Yep.
Keep reading.
That's how that
Obscurantist and obsolete. Yet Jason argued with his close companion and fellow Hellenist Menelaus.
Okay, that's going too far.
Yeah.
That's good. That's going too far. We're not there yet.
Yeah. But we did talk about, the gymnasium, even to the women. Remember when we had those crowns? Guess what kind of crowns those was? And Mother told us to do what? Break them up, get rid of every last one of them.
Right?
Yeah.
So the New Testament is originally written in Greek because, excuse me, Greek was more of a language then than Rome was, even though the New Testament was written 40 to 90 AD, and Rome was in the highlight of their world domination. But understand, everything that Rome did, they got from Greece. From the architecture to the gods, they just changed their names. Everything. The Colosseum that's in Rome, that was off the idea of the Greeks. Because the Greeks are the one who started it. There were no Colosseums, there wasn't anything like that prior to the Greeks coming. Right? So we're going to go 2 Maccabees, chapter 4, and we're reading verses 7 to 17. I had to stop there because that's another section.
But let's go back here. It says with Ptolemy, the second, the Alexandria Jews translated their Old Testament into Greek. This translation was later known as the Septuagint.
The Septuagint. What's the Septuagint? Anybody remember?
Greek translation of the Old Testament.
The Greek translation of the Old Testament. Yes.
From the Legend of 70. Okay.
Yep. Everything turned Greek. Everything. The Romans, all they did, I mean, the Romans were the Romans. I mean, they
Judea to produce the. They said it was 12. It was 12 tribes who were sent from Judea to produce the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures.
that's not entirely true. Because a lot of the 12 tribes that was in Judea at that time were Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and Simeon.
Yeah.
Those were the tribes that were in. Now, there could have been Issachar, there could have been a remnant, a small remnant, but there could have been a small remnant of the other tribes.
6 from each. Oh, it says 6 from each of the 12 tribes.
Okay, that sounds a little better.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Second Maccabees chapter 4. Start at verse 7. Let's get it.
Second Maccabees chapter 4, verse 7. But after the deaths of Secules, when Antiochus called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest.
He was underhanded. He did some trickery. Verse 8.
Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver and another revenue 80 talents.
So there you go. That's the bride. That's what he told him. Right? Verse 9.
Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more if it might have license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen.
Training up the youth in the fashion of heathen. Heathen.
What's going on to this day?
What are you doing today? You got youth programs
Little
all
League.
over the place. Little League. All over the place.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee football.
Oh, yeah.
All over the place.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep. We are not supposed to be doing any of that mess.
It's the same thing. Keep reading.
And to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians.
Change their name from Israelites to Antiochians.
The devil is a lie. I get passionate sometimes.
Keep going.
Which when the king had granted and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion.
To the Greekish fashion. That it's right there. What are they saying? Oh, we're going to change everything.
Yeah.
No longer call ourselves Israelites. Call yourself Antiochians. Bring up your children because you know what? It starts with the youth. Bring up your children in the programs that we have for the stadium. Get them nice and big and strong. So therefore, they can entertain us
We can make
on
money
the
off
professional
of,
level.
you know, they sold tickets. They were making money off us back then.
Yes.
So does that kind of fall when you do see athletes? You really don't recognize the person sometimes, even by who they are, their actual name, but either what sport or what team they played with for. So they go from being who they are to being Antiochus. If that was his whole team, Antiochians, like his team or whatever. You go when you are an athlete. Usually it's like, oh look, that's a football player, or that's a soccer player, or that's a training for
I
this. Or
repented because our children play sports. But guess what?
But that was done on ignorance.
Yeah.
You know now.
But look, it was the guy who was an Israelite, and he left the church. He ain't an Israelite no more. He comes to people who was street preaching, who was Israelites, and was trying to get on them. I know Shepard probably remember that video. He getting on these people.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have on no fringes. His hair was covered. He was out there trying to get on them and speak scriptures, but his daughter was over there. She was a track runner, and his wife had on
On
pants
the Sabbath day.
on the
On the
Sabbath day.
Sabbath day.
And he was Judah.
Yep.
And he knew what he was doing was wrong.
Mhm.
But holier than thou came over
Tried to
and
correct
tried to
them.
put these Israelite men in check.
They found out what he
They was like, oh, you got on that wristband, so you over there. And they put the camera on his wife. Your wife got on pants. You ain't got on no fringes. You talking scriptures with your head. They was cutting him left and right.
Shame.
We're like, man, go sit down somewhere. You Greeking it up. You lit for the Greeks right now.
Yes.
Before we go any further, with Antiochus Epiphany changing his name, what did he change his name to? What was his name changed?
He never changed his name.
Yes.
He tried to change the name of the Israelites to Antioch.
No.
No,
When Antiochus, he took the name Epiphany.
Yeah.
Or it was Theos. It was really Theos Epiphanes.
Oh,
He didn't change his name. He just added to it.
We talking about Antiochus the fourth, right?
Yes, Antiochus
His
Epiphanes.
surname was Epiphanes.
Right. His surname was Epiphanes. Just like the Maccabees. The Maccabees is the surname. It's not their name. It's their surname, meaning your last name. Like our last name is Israel. It was the surname. Maccabees is the surname of the brothers, which we haven't even got to yet.
This some good stuff. This some good eating. I'm gonna eat good right here, and I'm gonna eat good later.
All right.
So I'm here for the food.
Book, chapter, and verse. Where we at?
2 Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 2. Verse 11.
We should be at verse
11.
Yes, verse 11.
And the royal privileges granted of special favors to the Israelites
Mhm.
by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid.
Mhm.
He took away and putting down the government which were according to the law.
Yep.
He brought up new customs against the law.
So he said, you know what? You Israelites or you Antiochians, stop what you're doing. Get rid of that law because I'm bringing a new law. Verse 12.
For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection and made them wear a hat.
So what is he saying? What do they wear in sports?
helmet.
Baseball hats, football helmets, headbands, all that stuff. They're doing it still. They're doing it still. And why is it that this is solely fixed on places of exercise? Look at what it's saying. Because it just starts there.
Yeah, it started there.
It starts there. And if they get you there, they got you, period. This is what it's saying. This is the start of something very, very bad that we're going to see. Yes, ma'am?
John the father, who is that? The Eupolemus, is that talking about the Antiochus person? Or his father? Or is that somebody else?
That's somebody else.
Okay.
I just read that.
Let's continue on. Because John Ptolemy's,
That's just somebody
we're
else.
not going to even mention him. I don't think. No, we're not. We're more concerned about Jason. Keep going.
Verse 13. Now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of heathenism manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high
That
priest.
ungodly wretch. He brought all that stuff into Palestine. All that stuff. He allowed the Greeks. And it talks about, it starts with the places of exercise. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. And then it went all downhill from there. All downhill from there. Get the youth. Get them incorporated. So therefore, you continually have this going on. You put your children in there, then we'll pay you. We'll pay you for your children to entertain us.
What is the
Get them strengthened up so that when the real games happen, we can be very entertained by all this.
What was that group when you played football in high school? It was a support group that bought y'all uniforms and stuff.
No, that's not it. That's not
No,
it.
it was when parents would give money.
Yeah, that's not it. Oh, because the people here were getting money from the Greeks. And it's the same thing today. Who was part of Greek? Amalek.
Yep.
Who is running the sports entertainment thing today? Amalek.
So if you all are on your fantasy sports team, y'all watching sports, you all are a what to Yeshaya?
Heathen.
We're not supposed to be doing that. So you can't sit here and preach the word, but in your own time, your heathenism. Jeremiah 10 is just not talking about the Christmas tree. It's anything that heathens do.
Custom of the people are vain.
Yep, the custom of the people. It's vain. Vain. Vanity. Vain.
Let's keep going because he's going to mention it again. 13.
Verse 13. Now such was the height of Greek fashions and increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest.
We read it again to understand something. There were people who was against this. 14.
That the priest had no courage to serve any more at the altar.
The priest had no courage. Keep going.
But despising the temple.
You despise the temple when you do those outside things. Keep going.
And neglecting the sacrifices, hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise.
Says it again. Keep going.
After the game of discus called them forth.
So now it tells about the game. Throwing the discus.
Oh,
any type of sport there is.
We know somebody who did that.
15.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers.
Not setting by the honors of their father.
The face of your
that means you sit there. That means you sit there and you do not honor the Bible. You do not honor the law, statutes, and commandments because you like the Greeks.
What you said about
finish the verse. No. Gotta finish the verse. Finish the verse.
Oh my goodness.
But liking the glory of the Grecians best of all.
What are you about to say?
I was gonna say when he read about the temple, what is the temple now?
What do you mean what's the temple now?
The temple are us. So if we're doing this stuff now, we are defiling our temple.
Well, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, keep going.
I know you hyped up.
By reason whereof some sore calamity came upon them.
See, by reason sore calamity came.
What's that?
What's calamity?
So is that like when people play football or different things, now they blow out their knees and can't play no more and stuff like that?
Let's finish the verse.
For they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things.
There you are. That's what it says. Just have to finish the verse. But that's what it is.
So whoever watched football games on Thanksgiving,
Anything dealing with sports.
better repent.
But it's more than just sports. It's a whole lot more. Sports is the start of it. But there's some other things that happen too. Read verse 17.
For it is not a light thing to do wickedly against the laws of
You're
God.
doing wicked against the laws of God. Keep going.
But the time following shall declare these things.
Oh, gotta be mindful. Book of Josephus.
That's why you
Chapter 12. Book of Josephus, chapter 12. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Book of Josephus, book 12. Book 12. Chapter 5. Section 1. Verses 237 to 241.
What book we reading now?
We're in the Antiquities of the Jews.
You and I. What book we reading?
We're
That's not Josephus, is it?
yeah, it is.
Oh, we haven't got this far yet.
No, we have not.
Yeah, we still at the beginning.
We're at Joseph.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, we got a long way to go.
We got a long way to go, right? But it's all good. Book 12, chapter 5, section 1, verses 237 to 241.
Ooh,
Let's
bring
read
it
that.
out.
Verse 237. About this time, upon the death of Onias the high priest, they gave the high priesthood to Jason his brother, for that son which Onias left, or Onias the fourth, was yet but an infant. And in its proper place, we will inform the reader of all the circumstances that befell this child.
Mm-hmm.
But this Jason, who was the brother of Onias, was deprived of the high priesthood by the king, who was angry with him and gave it to his younger brother, whose name also was Onias. For Simon had these 3 sons, to each of whom the priesthood came, as we have already informed the reader. Verse 239. This Jason changed his name.
Slow down. Go ahead.
This Jesus changed his name to Jason, but Onias was called Menelaus. Now, as the former high priest, Jesus raised a sedition against Menelaus, who was ordained after him. The multitude were divided between them both, and the sons of Tobias took the part of Menelaus. But the greater part of the people assisted Jason, and by that means Menelaus and the sons of Tobias were distressed, and retired to Antiochus and informed him that they were desirous to leave the laws of their country and the Hebrew way of living according to them, and to follow the king's laws and the Grecian way of living. Verse 241. Wherefore they desired his permission to build them a gymnasium at Jerusalem.
Woo! I know Yeshua was mad.
And when he had given them leave, they also hid the circumcision of their genitals, that even when they were naked, they might appear to be Greeks.
Yes.
How do you do that?
What do men do today when they try to act like they're women? How they hide it? They tuck it between their legs and tape it.
Yeah, but they weren't doing that thing.
They were making it look like it was circumcised again.
They were making it look like they were
uncircumcised.
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 Oh,
Going around and pull skin up, like,
Right?
they had to pull the skin. They was doing some tricks with it, girl. Magic tricks. They was doing some magic.
But what am I trying to get at? Because that's not what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to bring out is that Jason, that's why I had them to stop at Menelaus. Jason was friends with Menelaus and offered Antiochus 300, was it 300? Yeah, 300 more talents than Jason did for the position of high priest.
And let me tell you something, Menelaus, they was of the tribe of Judah. So they was not from Levi. So they had no business being priests anything. Because the priesthood came from Levi. They were Benjamites.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too.
Yep.
Antiochus, of course, he wants whoever is the highest bidder.
All our people selling out.
So Antiochus accepted this, got financial gain. Menelaus was outside the line of Aaron. He was a Benjamite.
Maybe they tried to pull the skin up.
Benjamites were not supposed to be high priests. That was for the Aaron line to do that.
Yeah.
But money counts. And guess what happened to Jason, that ungodly wretch? He went to hiding.
Oh, yeah.
He went to the Amorites.
Yeah, the wicked will flee. Yeah.
He went to hiding. Let's go 2 Maccabees chapter 4, and we're going to read verse 23. 2 Maccabees 4, and we're going to read verse 23. Let's read it.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 23. 3 years afterwards, Jason sent Menelaus, the aforesaid Simon's brother, to bear the money unto the king and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters.
All right, so that's what we spoke of earlier. Go to 2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 4.
Man.
2 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 4. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city.
All right, so
Yeah.
next year, the Aculus and Laminius advised the king Ptolemy to avenge the battle of Panis. Remember I said earlier about the battle of Panis, to avenge it. Antiochus, right? Antiochus, here we are, Daniel 11. Antiochus heard their plan and invaded Egypt and defeated Ptolemy. What does this have to do with anything? He proclaimed himself king over Egypt, which was a rival with Palestine. So this is somebody separate. Don't get it twisted. This is someone separate. Ptolemy IV was made king over Egypt, and he reigned in Memphis, which is in Egypt. He reigned there. So we're going to see something. Daniel chapter 11, verses 25 to 27. Because you think backstabbing is now? Backstabbing was back then. Manipulation was back then. And we're just, right now, Israel is doing the same thing. Instead of being there for each other, we're backstabbing each other.
Yeah. Well, throw a checkbook.
Because guess what? Jason, what was his name? Jason, he's not done. He went into hiding, but he's going to come back again. Read Daniel 11, 25 to 27.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 25. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. Verse 27. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall be at the time appointed.
All right, so Antiochus was in Palestine. And Antiochus heard that the Israelites had forced Menelaus to take refuge, because Menelaus now went into hiding. But who told him that information was Jason, who came out of hiding. So we're going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 5. The Israelites had revolted against Menelaus, the ones who said enough is enough, because he did atrocious things to the temple. And Antiochus thought that this was rebellion against him. So then he decided, I'm going to destroy Jerusalem. Now, Ptolemy took over Egypt. Antiochus wanted Egypt, went off to Egypt. When he went off to Egypt, to sum this up, what I just said, and then we'll get to what the Bible says. Where I was at. Antiochus wants to take over Egypt. Failed. On his return back, when he was gone, the people said, Antiochus is gone. Menelaus, get out of our temple. We're taking it back. Antiochus comes back and was like, where's Menelaus? Jason, they forced him to go into hiding. Antiochus says, how dare they come against me? How dare they? Second Maccabees chapter 5, we're reading verses 11 through 17. And let's read it.
Second Maccabees chapter 5, verse 11. Now when this that was done came to the king's ear, he thought that Judea had revolted. Whereupon, removing out of Egypt in a furious mind, he took the city by force of arms.
He was leaving Egypt. Jason come, house nigga. Look at what happened. Look at what they doing.
Master bosses or son.
Right? And he was furious and said, how dare Israel, how dare Jerusalem come against me and remove my high priest? Next verse.
And commanded his men of war not to spare such as they met.
Kill everybody. Keep going.
And to slay such as went up upon the houses. Thus there was killings of young and old, making away of men, women, and children, slaying of virgins and infants.
Killing everybody. Keep going.
And there were destroyed within the space of 3 whole days 80,000, whereof 40,000 were slain in the conflict, and no fewer sold than slain.
Sold and slain. Keep going. Verse 15.
Yet was he not content with this.
He wasn't content. Bloodthirsty. Keep going.
But presumed to go into the most holy temple in all the world. Melanias, the traitor to the laws and to his own country, being his guide.
Melanias. Keep going.
And taking the holy vessels with polluted hands and with profane hands, pulling down the things that were dedicated by other kings to the augmentation and glory and honor of the place. He gave them away.
He took away everything. He said, I don't care what Alexander promised you. I don't care what my father promised you. I'm taking everything. I'm destroying everything. And guess what? Jason, the snitch, and Menelaus, the wretch. That our very own people. 17.
And so haughty was Antiochus at mind that he considered not that the Lord was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city, and therefore his eye was not upon the place.
So with Menelaus, Antiochus desecrated the temple, took everything, all the treasures gone. That city was under military control.
I have that right here.
Yeah, it was under military control. We're under military control now.
Can we read this passage? Are you done with that?
Nope. But go ahead and read it.
It's the orange part right here. Just that paragraph.
It starts the Orthodox Jews.
The Orthodox Hebrews who had been scandalized when Jason was named high priest were more deeply disturbed when Menelaus, a Benjamite with no claim to priestly office, was installed. Jason raised an army to back his claim to the high priesthood, and Menelaus courted the favor of Antiochus. The Syrians, who were campaigning against Egypt,
that's Ammonites, keep going,
felt it essential to maintain effective control of Palestine. Antiochus staged a sneak attack on Jerusalem on the Sabbath day when the Orthodox would not fight and slaughtered a large number of the enemies.
When the Orthodox, those are Israelites.
And slaughtered a large number of the enemies of Menelaus. The city walls were destroyed and a new fortress, the Acra, was built on the site of the citadel.
Okay.
That's a shame. Our own people
it gets more.
Was led to our downfall.
It gets more.
But let me tell you something now. Even though people don't know the truth like we know it, because all this stuff is coming out, like people finding out they're Israelites, but they don't know to the extent that we know. But what everybody is saying is it's a shame our people won't stand together. And it goes back, it goes like back to this. Our people still to this day won't stand together. But it's so easy to pick us off one by one and cause separation. So they weren't standing together then, our people not standing together now.
Right. All right, let's go. We're going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 5, verses 18 and 22. We still have not gotten to the Maccabean revolt. 2 Maccabees 5, 18 and 22. Because we have a lot to read. Let's go.
2 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 18. For had they not been formerly wrapped in many sins, this man, as soon as he had come, had forthwith been scourged and put back from his presumptions, as Heliodrus was, whom
Seculus.
whom Seculus the king was sent to view the treasury.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, God did not choose the people for the place's sake, but the place for the people's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And thereof the place itself that was partaker with them of the adversity that happened to the nation, did afterward communicate in the benefit sent from the Lord. And as it was forsaken in the wrath of the Almighty, so again the great Lord being reconciled, it was set up with all glory.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 21. So when Antiochus had carried out of the temple 1,800 talents,
Mm-hmm.
he departed in all haste unto Antiochia, waning in his pride to make the land navigable and the sea passable by foot. Such was the hardiness of his mind.
That's crazy. That's crazy. What was he trying to do? He was trying to build a bridge over, I believe it was over the Dead Sea. Trying to build a bridge over the Dead Sea so people can walk on the sea versus having to take ferries and boats and everything. He was a nutcase. Verse 22.
And he left governors to vex the nation at Jerusalem. Philip, and for his country of Phrygia, and for manners more barbarous than he that set him there.
Philip was one of his military commanders. That's who Philip was. We're going to go to Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, Book 12, Chapter 5. We're reading Section 3.
Man, look how we in covenant with stuff and don't even realize it. And we wonder why. We're trying to serve the Lord. We thinking, but Lord, I'm doing everything. Why am I still having all these trials and tribulation? Why does it feel like I'm still cursed?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are.
You are.
Because we unknowingly doing stuff.
Let's read.
Verse 246. King Antiochus, returning out of Egypt for fear of the Romans, made an expedition against the city Jerusalem. And when he was there in the 143rd year of the kingdom of Seleucidae, he took the city without fighting, those of his own party opening the gates to him. And when he had gotten possession of Jerusalem, he slew many of the opposite party. And when he had plundered it of a great deal of money, he returned to Antioch.
So he was a gangster.
Maccabean revolt. Now we're going to talk the Maccabean revolt.
Bring it out.
So we have talked, we now should have an understanding on what happened prior to Matthias giving his prayer. What happened? Why did the Maccabees rise up? So now we understand now. From the time of Alexander the Greek up until now, Antiochus. There was a lot of years. There was about 200 years of peace And that was all gone in a matter of 20 years. Gone. Everything. Daniel chapter 11, verses 28 to 30.
Okay. I didn't get you said section 3. What was
It was section 3. It was the
Okay.
entire section. It was only like 2 or 3.
One verse.
One verse. It was section 3.
Daniel 11?
Yeah, Daniel 11, 28 to 30. So what happened next? All right, so what happened next is that Antiochus took a second campaign to Egypt. It was a second campaign that he went to Egypt. And there were two brothers who wanted to fight against Antiochus. They were his nephews. And his nephew said, we need to get rid of him. So Antiochus went back to Egypt. Antiochus took over Memphis. And then he went to Alexandria. Rome came and stepped in. And Rome says, wait a minute, let's make you an ultimatum. And the Senate in Rome told him to evacuate Egypt now. Let's read Daniel chapter 11, verses 28 to 30.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 28.
Mm-hmm.
Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant,
Mm-hmm.
and he shall do exploits and return to his own land.
Yep.
At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter.
Mm-hmm.
For the ships of Chittim shall come against him.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant.
All right, so he's doing all this stuff, right?
Antiochus.
Antiochus. He goes back to Egypt. He already took over Memphis. Then he goes to Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to Alexandria. At this time, the Senate sent legions to Alexandria and told him, you need to leave now. And what did he do? He ran because remember, where was he captive? Rome. And he thought, well, he was afraid of the Romans. Big bad Antiochus was afraid of the Romans. At this time, Rome was just starting to become a power.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't really in power. They were starting, and they were doing some stuff. So Antiochus saw, wait a minute, I remember what happened to me in Rome. I almost died. I better go back to Palestine where I can bully them. So he decided to go back to Palestine. So he failed the second time of trying to take over Egypt, which was ran at this time by the Ptolemies. So he said, nope, can't do that. I need to go back to Egypt. I need to go back to Philistine. Daniel, let's read Daniel 11 and 30 again.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 30. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant.
Yes.
So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake by the holy covenant.
Ships of Chittim, that's Rome. That's Rome. And Rome came against him. And he was grieved. I'm not dealing with these Romans. No. I'm going back. I'm going back to Palestine. Going back to Israel. Therefore, I will make Israel and Jerusalem a Hellenization country. Yes?
So when it talks about him going back and to have intelligence with them that forsaken the Holy Covenant, is that when you're saying the second time he came back, Jason told them Israel ran out. The guy's name is Menelaus. So is that when he comes back, Jason tells them, Israel ran out. Menelaus, he's out and seeking, and this is before he goes in, or is this after?
This is after.
After, okay.
This is after.
That happened the
The first campaign in Egypt.
Okay, so this is
That's when it happened. He failed the first time and was going back. Jason met him and said, "Hey, this is what's happening."
Yeah.
That was the first time.
Okay.
This is the second time.
Okay.
He tried to take over Egypt again.
So when he comes back, when it says the intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant, is that the people that he left in charge?
That's
Those priests?
Greece itself. That's just them. So he considers himself Zeus. So why did he do that? Because he failed in Egypt. So him failing in Egypt was pretty much a death sentence for a lot of people. A lot of people. What happened? We're going to go to 2 Maccabees 6 and 18. What happened? He told them again, no Sabbath, no feast days, no sacrifices. Don't circumcise your children. Destroy every Torah that is around. Destroy it. I want them all destroyed. I want my gods, my brothers, set up in your temples. I command that unclean sacrifices be done. And I command that all Israelites eat pork. Read 2 Maccabees 6 and 18.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 18.
Yep.
Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh.
Constrained. He was not going to do it. December 16th, 167 BC. That is a very important day because, that's the day when they erected Zeus in the house of God. In the temple, the statue of Zeus was brought in on that very day. And they did burnt offerings of pig and every other abomination in the temple in front of the statue of Zeus. Daniel chapter 11, verses 31 and 32. Yes?
Would you repeat the year for December 16th?
167 BC. You can look that up yourself. Let's read Daniel 11, 31 and 32.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolation, and such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
Oh, yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. First Maccabees chapter 1, verses 41 to 49.
I was going to ask you a question about one part in that scripture.
Yeah, what is it?
What's the daily sacrifice?
The daily sacrifice, the offerings, daily offerings, no more. No more. No more daily offerings.
You know, some Israelites teaching that it's food.
No, it's sacrifice. It's sacrifice.
So there was daily sacrifices on the altar.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. But some of these huge Israelite groups are saying the daily sacrifice means famine. There's not going to be any food.
Interesting. No. What are they doing tonight? What did they do in 1972? What did the school system pass in 1972?
No more prayer.
No more prayers. No more. You can't do it. No more.
Because we're not sacrificing on the altar anymore. What's your daily sacrifice?
What's your daily sacrifice?
Your prayers.
King James Bible about to be outlawed. It's going to be viewed as hate material.
You don't have one?
You don't have a King James Bible?
All of our Bibles are kind of tore up. We gotta get. Well, I refuse to give this one up. I'm just sorry. I got some new Bibles, but we got a lot of new Bibles downstairs. But I can't get this one up.
I have too many notes and annotations in here.
Yeah.
All right. First Maccabees 1. We're reading 41 to 49. All right, let's read it.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Hellenization. I'm sorry, I keep pronouncing.
Is that what that means?
Hellenization. One people. Greek. Keep going.
Like now.
Yeah, like now.
They trying to do it again.
Keep going.
And everyone should leave his laws.
Mm-hmm.
So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
Mm-hmm.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion,
Mm-hmm.
sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath.
Now understand something. It's more than just his religion, his way of life. Period. Consent to his way of life. Everything about the Greeks, consent to that.
Mm-hmm.
Next verse.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Strange laws of the land. Aren't there doing strange laws today?
Oh, yeah.
Keep going.
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
What are they going to do?
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people.
Pollute the sanctuary and pollute you. Living in this Hellenization world, doing things of the heathen that you were told not to do. Pollute you. That's their goal. Pollute you. Doesn't it say that in Psalms 83? Pollute you.
Make us forget we're a nation.
Make you forget it. Make you forget what you're supposed to be doing.
The name.
Make everything out there about this Greek word. Make it seem so wonderful and exciting and relaxing and enjoyable. Fun. Keep going.
Verse 47. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Make their souls abominable.
And I believe in California, they're trying to pass a law where you can't get your sons circumcised.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Don't you know
You better
they
be
got
under
somebody
protection.
sitting down in a room studying our Bible, writing stuff down?
They don't even have to study it. They know it better than some of us do. That's a shame. They know it.
But
They know they got everything strategically planned.
But the thing
That's
about
what
it,
Psalms 83 says.
we didn't know we were at war. We was being rocked to sleep.
Well, time for you to wake up.
Spiritual war has been commanded war on us.
Time to wake up,
declared
12
war.
tribes. This is what
And
I
we didn't
mean.
know we was at
We
war.
are so caught up with fringes and all this other stuff that we don't see what the world is doing out there. We're living like heathens with Hebrew names and wearing fringes. And it's time to stop. It's time to stop.
some of us got sports highlights on our cell phones right now. And this ain't the first time we teaching this. We started teaching all this when we first learned we was in the truth, didn't we? This is not the first time it's coming up. But people still do it. And they think Yeshaya. I try to hide stuff from Shepherd and I. When Yeshaya, the
Who am
Holy
I?
Spirit, and the Father sees
Who am I?
everything. The one that can
I'm just
destroy
a deliverer.
the one can
messenger.
destroy the flesh and the spirit.
I'm destroying
Sees
this tissue.
everything. What's more?
Let's go. Next verse.
Verse 49.
Yes.
To the end they might forget the law
Forget the law.
and change all the ordinances.
Change all the ordinances. Forget about everything that you
Yeshaya, who?
know. You may learn. Forget about all that. Second Maccabees chapter 6. We're reading verses 1 through 12. So it's going to be a lot of reading. We got a lot to cover still.
I wanted to read this right here.
Read what is.
No, right here. It says Antiochus was determined to remove all traces of Israelite faith. Israel God was identified with Jupiter and a bearded image of pagan deity, perhaps in the likeness of Antiochus, was erected on the temple altar.
Right.
Where swine were offered and sacrificed. Israelites was forbidden under penalty of death to practice circumcisions. Sabbath observance of the celebration of the feast of the Israelite calendar. Copies of scriptures were ordered destroyed. The laws was enforced with the utmost scrutiny, and aged scribe named Eleazar was flogged to death because he would not eat swine flesh.
We read that in second. We read that earlier about Eleazar refusing to eat pork. One thing that was incorrect about that is Jupiter. Jupiter is a Roman god, not a Greek god. That's the only thing that was incorrect, but everything else was correct.
But I know what you're talking about because they still have that same statue.
And what do they call it? What do they call that statue?
St. Peter?
St. Peter.
They saying it's Peter.
And it's really Zeus.
Yeah. And they kiss his feet.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They kiss his feet so much that the toe is a different color than the statue.
Ooh.
Was you done?
I don't know if you got to this yet. I don't think you probably going to talk about this. By force of arms, what's his name? Menelaus continued as high priest, and the Hellenizing party gained a victory. Yet the Hellenizers had gone too far, and their zeal to annihilate the old order proved their own undoing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just stop there. All right.
But yeah, back then they said it was him, and they called it Zeus. But now the Catholic priests, they called it Jupiter. But now, if you see in the Vatican, they have that same statue and they kiss his feet, but it said it's Simon Peter.
Right, but it's really Zeus. So let's read 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. Let's read that.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Israelites to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place.
Note with 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 2, even though it says Jupiter, that's not right. It should be Zeus. Jupiter was a Roman god. This was under Greek control. There was no way that Greeks were going to call their most holiest temple Jupiter. That was not going to happen.
But if there was transforming from Hebrew to Greek, Why would they call it Jupiter? Jupiter was.
No, it's supposed to be Zeus. Just supposed to be Zeus.
But you
Next
know,
verse.
different times, the same God, they just renamed it.
It's the same God, but understand something that the Greeks are not going to call on a Roman God. It's not going to happen. Even when Rome took over the whole known world, the Greeks were still calling on Zeus. Jupiter was a Roman god.
So when
really, it was the same god as Zeus. They just changed his name.
So when the Apostle Paul went somewhere by himself, where they had burnt the scrolls, and he said they had all these gods and a no-name God, was one of them named Zeus?
No, they were calling them Jupiter, and I forgot what the other. No, I don't know if Paul was by himself. The time that they did that, they were calling him Jupiter, and they called Barnabas something else. Let's continue on 2 Maccabees 6:3.
No, I don't know.
No, it wasn't Venus. Venus is a woman god. Keep reading.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 3.
Right.
The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people.
Apollo. Keep going.
For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles who dallied with harlots and had to do with the women within the circuit of the holy places. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful.
Prostitution
in the temple.
Keep going. Verse 5.
The altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth.
6.
Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be an Israelite.
Fast, ancient fast, or profess himself. You couldn't profess. You had to call yourself an Antioch. What do they do today? American.
Afro-American.
Keep going.
It's black and brown people now.
7.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month there were brought by bitter constraints to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Israelites were compelled to go in possession to Bacchus, carrying idols.
All right, when the When the fast of Bacchus was kept, the fast of Bacchus. What do they do in the Christian church today? That's Bacchus. That's Bacchus.
The dancing around,
all that.
Running around the church. Wow. The synagogue of Satan.
It's still happening today. Your churches are Hellenization. Everything is Hellenization. Next verse, verse 8.
Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Israelites, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery.
So make an example out of certain people, and then the rest of them will follow. Keep reading.
Verse 10, for there were two women brought who had circumcised their children, but when they had openly led round about the city, the babies hanging about their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall.
All right, so these two women said, I'm not going to follow your laws. Circumcise their children, walking with their children naked around the city.
The devil is a lie.
Get it later. Through the children, headlong.
Those who trust in the Lord.
Next verse. Yeah. Next verse.
Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities.
Let's hold there. Read that again.
Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities.
Don't be discouraged. Learn from it. Keep going.
But that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for a chastening of our nation.
Learn from it.
And I think it's strange because scriptures just don't fall off the wall around here.
Learn from it. Okay.
Isaiah 40:31. Those who trust in the Lord will find new strength.
Trust in the Lord. Stop trusting yourselves. So these are to be offered on the 20th and 5th day of each month. And that was Antiochus Epiphanes' birthday. Offered up. Mattathias
And who else? Who want to celebrate birthdays around here?
So they were required to set up a heathen altar. In the village of Modin, there was an aged priest, Mattathias, and he had 5 sons: John, Simeon, Judas, Eleazar, Jonathan. Antiochus is now coming to Modin. Remember I said Modin plays a very key role. I said that earlier. Modin plays a key role. And the key role is that's where Mattathias lived.
What was the guy name that had the 5 sons?
Mattathias.
I want to write this
And
down.
Antiochus came to Modin and said, renounce God and offer unclean sacrifices unto me.
I don't think so, Negro.
Mattathias was told, you make the first offering. And he refused. But a house nigga came, I'll do it, boss. I'll do it.
I'll do it, boss.
And guess what? Mattathias killed him.
I don't blame him.
He killed him.
All praise.
First Maccabees, chapter 2. We're reading verses 15 to 27. Let's read it.
First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 15. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Israel came unto them, Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias on this wise, thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren.
Strengthened with sons and brethren. They know who he was.
Oh.
Next verse. Or what?
Shamaria, were you talking about when you say who was John? I think that's chapter 2, verse 1. Who was John?
I don't know. I'm not looking at that.
No, I was just saying because I saw it. That's all.
Oh, okay. Next verse.
Verse 18. Now therefore come thou first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem, so shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards.
See that? They do that today.
Oh my goodness.
They do it today. Mattathias, you got these strong boys. We'll give you silver, gold. We'll give you whatever you want. Just sacrifice. Sacrifice on our altar. Show the people, because he was leader. And if he would have failed, everybody else would have failed.
But didn't that rotten devil do that with Yeshaya?
Right. Same thing. 19.
Ooh.
Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice.
A loud voice. People don't like loud voices. Read.
Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
There you go. Talk with a loud voice. A lot of people don't like to hear loud voices being talked. They feel it's tyranny.
It's the spirit in them.
It's not tyranny. It's the love of our Father. That's why we speak with loud voice. Next
The
verse.
faces of our
Ahia forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words, to go from our religion either on the right hand or the left.
I am not going to be swayed. I am not going to be swayed. I am not going to straddle the fence.
no such thing.
Let's go.
Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Hebrews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Moses, according to the king's commandment.
24.
Which thing when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to shew his anger according to judgment, wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
Killed him on the altar.
All right.
Next verse.
Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice,
Kill him too.
he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of God, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri, the son of Salom. Verse 27. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
Let him follow me.
All right, y'all.
There you are. There you are.
You better stand for something.
Let's go to the Josephus. Antiquity of the Jews. Book 12. Chapter 6. Section 1. Verses 270 to 277. 270 to 277. Antiquities of the Jews, Book 12, Chapter 6, Section 1, verse 270 to 277. Let's get it.
But as soon as he had ended his speech, there came one of the Israelites into the midst of them, and sacrificed as Antiochus had commanded, at which Mattathias had great indignation, and ran upon him violently with his sons, who had swords with them, and slew both the man himself that sacrificed, and Apelles, the king's general, who commanded them to sacrifice. With a few of his soldiers, he also overthrew the idol altar, and cried out, if, said he, anyone be zealous for the law of his country and for the worship of God, let him follow me. And when he had said this, he made haste into the desert with his sons, and left all his substance in the village. Many others did the same also, and fled with their children and wives into the desert, and dwelt in caves. But when the king's generals heard this, they took all the forces they then had in the citadel at Jerusalem, and pursued the Israelites into the desert. And when they had overtaken them, they in the first place endeavored to persuade them to repent, and to choose what was most for their advantage, and not put them to the necessity of using them according to the law of war. But when they would not comply with their persuasions, but continued to be of a different mind, they fought against them on the Sabbath day, and they burnt them as they were in the caves, without resistance, and without so much as stopping upon the entrances of the caves. And they avoided to defend themselves on that day, because they were not willing to break upon the honor they owed the Sabbath.
They were not willing to fight on the Sabbath day. And they got killed. But there's something that's going to happen. Mattathias is seeing this. You have what?
I was going to say, you had people, Israelites, was not keeping the Sabbath because of COVID.
That was, let's continue.
Even in such distress,
That's crazy.
for our law required that we rest upon that day. There were about 1,000 with their wives and children who were smothered and died in these caves.
Mm-hmm.
But many of those that escaped joined themselves to Mattathias
Mm-hmm.
and appointed him to be their ruler, who
Mm-hmm.
taught them to fight even on the Sabbath
Even
day.
on the Sabbath day. There you go. On the Sabbath day, Antiochus knew this. So he's, bruh, I'm going to get you. On the Sabbath day, I know you're not going to fight because you're so zealous about your law. Mattathias was different. Let's go to Daniel. Were we finished? Was that?
No.
Okay, let me know because I don't have it in front of me. Keep going.
And told them that unless they would do so, they would become their own enemies by observing the law so rigorously, while their adversaries would still assault them on this day.
By observing the law so rigorously. Right? Legalism. So you're going to get killed because it's the Sabbath day?
But that's what the demons used against us.
Exactly.
Legalism.
Keep going.
And that nothing could then hinder, but they must all perish without fighting. 277. This speech persuaded them, and this rule continues among us to this day, that if there be a necessity, we may fight on the Sabbath days.
Didn't Yeshua say that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't. That's weird.
Let's go to Daniel chapter 11, and we're reading verses 32 to 35.
Man.
Yeshua said the same thing.
Yep. Man.
Oh, it's the Sabbath day. I can't protect my life. What are you, stupid? I'm going to keep the Sabbath day. So kill me, Antiochus. That's what they were saying. Fight, fight, fight. A lot of us don't have a fight in us. You let this Hellenistic world swallow you up and spit you out with your fringes on. No fight whatsoever. No fight. Read that.
Daniel chapter 11, verse 32. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
33.
And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days.
Yes, keep going.
Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flattery.
Yeah.
And some of them of understanding shall fall to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed.
It is yet for a time appointed. You're going to have fights. You're going to have battles. But stand up for something. Stand up. Stop letting the devil just do whatever he wants to. Stop letting this world dictate to how you should live, how you should operate.
Stop being passive.
Stop being passive. Nothing more worse than a passive person. Nothing worse. Mattathias and his sons, they had a lot of people follow them to the mountains. This was the beginning. Just the beginning. 1,000 men, women, children died. Why? Because they refused to fight on the Sabbath. They refused to fight. So Antiochus exterminated them.
Basically.
We got a big passage. 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verses 28 to 41. Mattathias says, that's not going to happen to me. His son says, that's not happening to us. We are not going to just lay down because it's the Sabbath day. 1 Maccabees 2 and 28. Let's read it.
1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they had in the city.
Left everything. Keep going.
Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there.
Mm-hmm.
Both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them.
Mm-hmm.
Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness.
So you know people had to snitch. You know people snitched. Then you know where they went. Oh, they went down into the valley. You take a left at the brook. You make a right through the forest. You'll find them. Next verse.
They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war
Okay,
against.
feedback somewhere. Feedback somewhere.
Your echo up.
Okay, let's read. 34. Just start at 34.
But they said, "We will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day."
We will not come forth. We will not do what the king tells us. 35.
So when they gave them the battle with all speed,
Mhm.
howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid,
This is what they said. Passive. Next verse.
but said, "Let us die in all our innocency. Heaven and earth shall testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully."
That's passive. That's not fighting. That's passive. That is living the law rigorously. Your life is about to end, and that's how you fight. Let us die in our innocency. If they would come through that door right now, how many of you would say that?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Let us die in our innocency. That you put me to death wrongfully. Instead of getting up, throwing something at them, fighting, do something. It's the Sabbath day.
Oh, no.
38.
So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore.
Right, they mourn for them. All these people. Wow. 1,000. Keep going.
And one of them said to another, "If we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth."
That person had wisdom. That person had wisdom. If we sit there and do what they did, who is going to fight against the tyranny of Hellenization? Who's going to do it? Next verse.
At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, "Whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him.
Mhm.
Neither will we die all as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places."
There you go.
Yeah, basically, they were murdered.
No. There's a group, and this group was called Hadassium. Hasiddim. And what was this group? They were zealous. They were zealous for the Lord. And they joined Mattathias against Hellenization. They joined up with Mattathias. So now Mattathias is waging war against the Israelites who went with Antiochus. He's waging war against them. Now, unfortunately, Mattathias died during this struggle. And then he turned it over to Judas. We're going to read, it's another big one. No, we're not. We're going to go to the Antiquity of the Jews. Book 12, chapter 6, section 3 and 4, verses 280 to 286. Antiquity of the Jews, book 12, chapter 6, section 3 and 4. No, yes, section 3 and 4, verse 280 to 286. Let's read that.
Verse 280. But to be mindful of the desires of him who begot you, and brought you up, and to preserve the customs of your country, and to recover your ancient form of government, which is in danger of being overturned, not to be carried away with those that either by their own inclination or out of necessity betray it, but to become such sons as are worthy of me, to be above all force and necessity, and so to dispose your souls as to be ready when it shall be necessary to die for your laws, as sensible of this, by just reasoning, that if God see that you are so disposed, he will not overlook you, but will have a great value for your virtue, and will restore you again what you have lost.
What? Yeshai is a man of war, isn't he? You got it. Let's continue.
And will return to you that freedom in which you shall live quietly and enjoy your own customs. Verse 282. Your bodies are mortal and subject to fate, but they receive a sort of immortality by the remembrance of what actions they have done.
That's right.
And I would have you so in love with this immortality, that you may pursue after glory, and that when you have undergone the greatest difficulties, you may not scruple.
Remember, they are going against the Greek army. They're going against the Greek army. A band of priests. That's what Mattathias was. He was a priest. Keep reading.
For you may not scruple for such things to lose your lives. Exhort you especially to agree with one another, and in what excellency any of you exceeds another, to yield to him so far, and by that means to reap the advantage of everyone's own virtue.
That's what's not happening today. That is what is not happening today. Crabs in the bucket. Keep reading.
Do you then esteem Simon as your father? Because he is a man of extraordinary prudence, and be governed by him in what counsels he gives you. Take Maccabees for the general of your army, because of his courage and strength, for he will avenge your nation, and will bring vengeance on your enemies, admit among you the righteous and the religious, and augment their power. Verse 285. When Mattathias had thus discoursed to his sons, and had prayed to God to be their assistant, and to recover to the people their former constitution, he died a little afterward, and was buried at Modin. All the people making great lamentation for him, whereupon his son Judas took upon him the administration of public affairs in the 146th year. Verse 286, and thus by the ready assistance of his brethren and of others, Judas cast their enemies out of their country, and put those of their own country to death who had transgressed his laws, and purified the land of all the pollutions that were in it.
There you go. He did it all. Well, there's something happened to Judas, but we're not going to get into that. Not in this lesson. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2. This is a big section. Verses 45 to 70. This is what Matthias said. Because it's not mentioned in the Josephus what he said. But this is what Matthias said before he died. 1 Maccabees chapter 2, reading verses 45 to 70. No, it's long, but you know what? We got to do this. Let's read.
First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 45.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars.
Mm-hmm.
And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly.
Mm-hmm.
They pursued also after the profound men to work prospered and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles and out of the hand of kings, neither suffered they the sinner to triumph.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 49. Now, when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his sons, Now hath pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation.
All right, so he was in battle and he's dying. But he's saying something to his sons. Read 50.
Now, therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time,
Mhm.
so ye shall receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was not imputed unto him for righteousness?
Yes.
Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment, and was made Lord of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Phineas, our father, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood.
Phineas is the son of Aaron. That's the Aaron line, and Matthias was part of that Aaron line. Okay. 55 says Jesus, but that's Joshua. Read.
Joshua, for fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land.
Mm-hmm.
David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Elias, for being zealous and fervent for the law, was taken up into heaven.
We all know that's Elijah. Keep going.
Ananias, Azarias, and Mishael, by believing, were saved out of the flame.
Everybody know who that is. 60.
Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions.
So he's going back and letting them know this is our history, right? This is our history. This is who we are. Keep going.
And thus consider ye throughout all ages, that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms.
Mm-hmm.
Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found,
Mm-hmm.
because he is returned into his dust, and his thought is come to nothing.
Yes.
Verse 64. Wherefore ye, my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it shall ye obtain glory.
Be valiant. Show yourselves. Be valiant. Be valiant. Keep going.
And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you.
Mm-hmm.
As for Judas Maccabeus, he has been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain, and fight the battle of the people.
67.
Take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge ye the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law.
Mm-hmm.
So he blessed them, and was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the sepulchres of his father at Modin, and all Israel made great lamentation for him.
Made great lamentation for him. We're going to talk about Judas Maccabee.
Is this section 4?
What's section 4?
Judas Maccabees.
I didn't know we were doing sections. We're not doing sections. I didn't say section 1, 2, 3. We're not doing sections.
No.
This is what we're going to do. One second.
History Channel. Discovery Channel.
I haven't watched that show.
You probably
I said I'm gonna watch it.
like having
I don't know. See, why the chicken supposed
to get your phone.
to get to my password? I gotta get there. My password is your birthday. You're crazy.
Hey, sir, watch it.
Which one?
Yeah, that was cool. Okay, it's not true. I'm having a hungry birthday. You're trying to be stuff.
I'm just saying, we're gonna do.
Like I do with the Olympics. Actually, sports. No, but I'm saying like I didn't do that. But I did. Oh, I thought you had the records. I think you're okay. No, but I was separating it. You have the Olympics and you have I wasn't. Yeah, all together. And I was like, the Olympics is separate. Because in my head, I was seeing it as, oh, it's like a great Coliseum. I didn't put that
I'm still in last night. No.
Is it like, it's not like it's here,
He's sort of like that.
I want to have the So direct. She got right on her. I don't come back. I don't know what those are.
I'm okay. I feel just
You probably delusional. It's so hot.
more normal.
Yeah, you really will have on a sweater, will you?
That's a little first.
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We got at least 3 more hours of material here. So what we're gonna do is next week,
How many more?
at least 3. So what we're gonna do next week is we're gonna discuss the life of Judas Maccabee, because it's a lot that's in the Josephus. We're gonna discuss the life of Judas Maccabee. Friday, what we're gonna do Friday is we're gonna examine the people who the Apocrypha mentions who fought against Antiochus. Talked briefly about Eleazar. We talk about the woman who her and her sons defied against Antiochus, and I think there's a few other people. So we're going to talk about them Friday night. And then Saturday, on the last day of dedication in the winter holy day, we're going to go through Judas Maccabee and what happened. All right, so announcements coming up. Feast of Dedication, Day 7, and the Winter Holy Day is next week. Feast of Purim, February 10th through the 11th. Passover, March 10th through the 11th. Excuse me. Spring Holy Day, March 10th through the 11th. Feast of Unleavened Bread is March 12th through the 18th. First Fruits, March 18th and 19th. So yes, those are double Shabbat days. Get ready. Our doctrine lessons will not start on December 3rd because we're going to finish this up with the Maccabees and get more history. And then our doctrine lessons will start that Sabbath after. And then after the holy days in March, we do it every year, health and healing. We're going to have lessons on health and healing, and that starts March 25th. Those are the lessons that we have. Unless the Holy Spirit changes, that's what we're going to be doing. So next week, we're going to really get into Judas Maccabee and Jonathan Maccabee. We're going to talk about them next week. Questions? Are we clear or have an understanding on what was presented today?
Lisa got a question.
Yes? Lost was not for another couple weeks.
Selfish.
What else? Any other questions?
So we see basically how the Israelites fought is after Alexander the Greek and Antiochus the Third. As well, we saw that is when what's his name?
Antiochus.
Antiochus Epiphanes
Mhm.
is when is when he take rule over Greek as Israel fell again. And after wait, I'm not finished. After when
Yes, sir.
sorry.
No, I go ahead.
Sorry. And when that he decided when he crossed the line, because he did of course the Israel decided to stand for itself again. The
Mhm.
Maccabees started standing for themselves. That's what I get from this whole
Right. The only thing that you said was incorrect is that our people were not sinning.
Oh.
During the Greek captivity in the beginning, our people were not sinning. It's the only captivity that we went into that we were not sinning.
Wow, that's true.
We weren't sinning.
Because that didn't happen to the Persians.
Because remember, they were showing favor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember,
Mhm.
the Babylonian captivity is because we sinned.
Mhm.
The Persian captivity because we continued to sin even in Babylon. We were still sinning. The Greeks, we were not in sin. There was no I'm going to say there was no outward sin going rampant like it was prior to Babylon and like it was in Persia. It wasn't like that. And then the Roman came, and of course we were sinning again. But with the Greek captivity, when the Greek captivity started, we were not sinning. Yes?
Did that start with the rebuilding of the temple during the Persian captivity?
The sinning? No. They
No,
were
the
sinning.
non-sinning. The non-sinning. Did
No, they
that
were sinning still.
so
They were sinning still. They were sinning because that's when we get the books Malachi and Zechariah and who else is about that time? It skips my mind. Zephaniah, Habakkuk. Those prophets was because, and especially Ezekiel, those prophets were prophesying in Persian captivity. And if you read the book of Ezekiel up until chapter 40, they were doing all kinds of stuff in Persia. So it wasn't until the Greek when the Greeks came along, Israel wasn't outwardly sinning like they were doing in Babylon. That's it?
so
Yeah.
so my question is after the Maccabees took back Israel, right?
Right.
Where did we fall again? So
join us next week?
No, well, I'm not talking about that next
Yeah, but
week.
what is teaching coming up?
No, after the Maccabees, and all of them died except one, Simon. After the Maccabees, there came a period of I don't know how many years. But what happened is that's when Idumea came in, and that's when the Romans they took power, and the Idumeans, the Caesar at that time, it wasn't Julius. I forget who it was. It was after him. Antony, I don't remember right now. When Caesar came in power, he said, I don't want the 12 tribes to be in power. I want Idumea to be in power. And they came in power. Was Israel actively sinning like they were in Babylon, before Babylon? No, they were not. The captivities of Rome happened because Rome was world power. And the same thing happened with the Roman captivity, sort of. So Israel was not actively sinning prior to the Roman captivity, but no sin goes uncovered. No sin goes unpunished. So when they were in Persia and they were sinning and sinning and sinning, and Yeshaya kept telling them, even in the book of Daniel, they told them, they kept doing it in Persia. So Yeshaya, because our people, majority was serving prior to the Greek captivity. We understand the Greek captivity did not start until Antiochus. Yeah, it did not start until Antiochus Epiphanes. Prior to that, there was no captivity. When Roman captivities, well, what I'm trying to say is that Greek to Roman, there really wasn't no difference. The Greeks just said they basically Rome defeated them, and then Rome just took over everything. So whatever was happening with the Greeks at that time with Israel, with Palestine, then when the Romans came in, they just took over, but they did it a little more violently.
What was that? Read the comment.
Deacon Amin says, Shepherd, I'm very happy that you're bringing this history. You know I love history. Our young people need to know our history. We know others' history. It's time for us to know our own history.
Right. I'm not bringing it. The Holy Spirit is bringing it. I don't bring nothing. I just like history. So the Holy Spirit is the one who brings all this, not me. But all praises that, Mother allows us to do this. So that's what we're going to do next week. Judas Maccabee, John Maccabee, a little bit of Simon on the Shabbat, and then on Friday, Eleazar, the woman with the sons, and I think it's two other people who defied Antiochus. We're going to learn about them. Okay. All right. So that's going to conclude our lesson for today, because we would have been going on and on and on, but we want to, listen to some music, hear some food, and
Here's some.
listen to some music and eat a little food and enjoy dedication, because I guess people are hungry.
I can keep going with the words some more.
Right? Yeah, but we'll be going to at least close to 7.
No, sometimes Shepherd and I talk about history for like a whole week. We just keep coming around.
Mm-hmm.
This was something because we thought that I thought the Greeks that enslaved Israel as well in the White too. I didn't know that Alexander Greek was actually with condoning Israelites. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people think the Greek captivity started with Alexander the Greek, which it didn't. It started much later after that. All right, so this is just a precursor of the doctrine lessons that we're going to be going through. So this is just a precursor of what we're going to be learning in a couple of weeks, starting with the Sabbath. So with that being said, I've talked enough. If you've enjoyed the lesson, found it educational, like, share, and subscribe. We got to do the Psalms thing. Oh, it's feast day. All right, so if you enjoyed the lesson, found it educational, like, share, and subscribe. The notification, I'll let you know when we go live. Next week, Friday, 7 p.m., we will talk about more of the Maccabees with the people who actually stood up and defied Hellenization.
Because everybody wasn't in armies and stuff like that. You had individual houses that stood against him as well.
That's what we're going to do next week, Friday.
Yeah.
Kwam Yashua.
Kwam Yashua.